Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, A Day of My Life with Scopus AI. We have the pleasure today to hear from a splendid lineup of amazing speakers that will walk us through some of the most interesting findings they've had so far and experience with some of these tools, namely Scopus AI. We are going to hear from Kate Hatcher and Callum Perry from University of East Anglia on using Scopus AI to scaffold student skills and understanding of systematic search principles. Just after, we're going to hear from Elisenda Cora from the University of Pompeu Fabra on testing deep research in real projects. And then we're going to hear from Jussi Koivumäki from Tampere University on using Scopus AI in research, supervision, and workflow efficiency. So without further ado, I would like to kick us off for just a few minutes and to walk us through the arc of this magnificent journey, going from thinking machines into artificial intelligence that can help us on a day-to-day. So there is no doubt that AI is having a huge impact on science. We've seen, after all, recently, the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2024 went to AI scientists Hopfield and Hinton for their contributions in the advances of machine learning. The Nobel Prize of Chemistry in 24 to Demis and others for the AlphaFold and their amazing tools of how we can predict proteins in 3D. And by now, we have also established that the current state of affairs allows AI to contribute already in practically every step of the researcher journey. Now, there is no doubt also that the idea of thinking machines has important deep roots in philosophy, from the hierarchy of philosophers that laid down the basis for most of our Western civilization, from Socrates to Plato and then to Aristotle, who laid the groundwork with formal logic, and then off to René Descartes, who in the 16th century by many is recognized as one of the figures who established epistemics and epistemic reasoning, introduced the mind-body dualism, and the first one who actually suggested mechanistic processes that can do what humans would be able to do. And then off to Gottfried Leibniz, who obviously together with Isaac Newton developed the calculus, but also Leibniz, the binary arithmetic, which is the basis for any computer system, and off to Alan Turing, who actually was fundamental in establishing theoretical computer science, formulating algorithms for the first time, and creating the Turing machine, which was the first model of a general purpose computer, not to mention the Turing test, which established a baseline and a benchmark for AI. And then off to Shockley, who actually received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 56 for transistors, and off to Hopf, who was actually the first to commercially, with his team, make available microprocessors. And then in more recent times, I think the journey has been really steep. After that, we have experienced the introduction for the first time of the term artificial intelligence in 1956 at the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on AI. At the time, John McCarthy and others actually declared machines will be able to do any work a human can do. That was the vision already from the 50s. And then off to the introduction of the perceptron, Adaline, a modification of that, and then multi-layered perceptron, backpropagation, and deep neural networks that today define the cutting edge of what we experience in AI. And we have to admit that the machines and AI that we build actually reflect the intelligence that we design. And now we stand at a moment where those machines are beginning to reflect back, to learn from us, and to challenge us to learn anew. And some of the ways that the machines are doing nowadays this are the trends you can see here. We are talking about AI that can do multimodal, multi-structure, RAG. We are talking about multi-agent systems that can collaborate and coordinate to solve advanced problems. We are talking about higher order semantic representations. Very recently, actually on Friday, nested learning, a new paradigm from Google announced in that regard. And then neurosymbolic AI that can actually allow us to combine epistemics and epistemic reasoning and logic with the neural part of this technology. So all these evolutions are really tremendous. And I don't want to take more time from the splendid presentations that you will see in a moment, but I do want to leave you with a thought. Very recently, in a book written by Kissinger, Smith, and Huttenlocher, the authors state at every turn, humanity will have three primary options: confining AI, partnering with it, or deferring to it. So I will leave it to your best judgment on what the path should be. And with that, I would like to pass it on to our splendid speakers, Callum Perry and Kate Hatcher from University of East Anglia. Welcome, Callum and Kate.
Thank you, George. Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Hatcher, and this is my colleague, Callum Perry. Can you give us a wave, Callum? We're academic teaching partners at the University of East Anglia. In our talk, we're going to outline and demonstrate how we've adopted Scopus AI to support our students during the preparation stages of their systematic search assignments. We aim to show how closed dataset AI tools like Scopus AI can enhance information literacy, support critical thinking, and scaffold research planning. We've divided the session into the following parts. So firstly, Callum will outline our role in the context of the institution and our institutional policy. Then he's going to discuss how Scopus AI fits into our advanced searching library session. And then I'll demo how we use Scopus AI to help students prepare for their academic systematic searches. And we'll finish by outlining key takeaways for developing this practice in your own context. Just a note before we start, though, we won't be covering the deep research tool in this talk, whilst we're actively engaged with Elsevier about the new deep research functions and how to embed these into our teaching and support for staff and postgraduates. The context of our session today is undergraduate cohorts, and the work that we've undertaken to build Scopus AI into undergraduate teaching and provision. So we'll be focusing on the original AI tool. So I'll hand over to Callum now to talk to you about our role, context, and policy.
Thanks, Kate, and good morning, everyone, from wherever you're watching this morning. So the University of East Anglia is a mid-sized research-intensive university with around 17,000 students. And as Kate has mentioned, our role as academic and teaching partners is to support students and staff across all levels and disciplines of study to develop information and digital literacy. So you might know us better as teaching librarians in a range of your own contexts. So we teach staff and students how to get the most out of our library discovery tools and services, as well as training on how to navigate subscribed databases, of which Scopus is one of those databases that we subscribe to. So I'm sure it comes as no surprise that the growth of generative AI and its integration into existing academic search tools has really prompted us to reflect and adapt. And it's becoming increasingly important to consider the ways that students interact with AI and how we might be able to enhance our information and digital literacy offer to enrich students' academic experiences and success. So like many institutions, UEA has a range of policies and resources that underpin our approach to generative AI. And I won't go through all of these policies today, but in short, they guide students and researchers to use generative AI to spark ideas and use it as an aid to planning and organisation. But ultimately, within the context of our institution, citing AI-generated material is not deemed a sufficient academic practice. And yet we know that students will use AI and that they need to build the skills in assessing and interacting with it, or they'll lose valuable skills for their future employment, or worse still, misuse the tools for their own academic work. So Scopus AI sits neatly between this dichotomy that we find ourselves in, between the transparency and the rigor of our traditional and trusted closed data library discovery tools, which use keyword searching, in comparison to the search benefits of large language Gen AI models trained on largely unregulated, huge data sets that lack in transparency around the sources that they draw on. So Scopus AI provides a closed data set lens through which we can introduce students to the concepts of Gen AI within a much more regulated pool of academic data, which is appropriate to their discipline. And through this, students can develop information and digital or AI literacies in a closed environment. So they can do this in a range of ways. They can develop their understanding of the information literacy landscape and their skills of critical curiosity by comparing and contrasting Scopus AI with traditional academic search tools and larger ChatGPTs. They can foster a sense of agency as a researcher by making informed decisions about which platform works best for their own needs. They can explore and practically apply considerations of academic integrity, and they can also learn to navigate the databases using a range of sophisticated prompts. They can also reflect on and evaluate the remit and the angle of their topic using Scopus AI summaries. And this also helps to the phase of idea sparking and beginning to think about idea generation. And they could also augment the constructing and the honing of different stages of their academic search string and consider filters and exclusion or inclusion criteria by drawing on and critiquing the generated co-pilot search strings within Scopus AI. So we use Scopus AI to explore and develop all of these skills and literacies before our students even start to think on developing more of a rigorous academic search. And Kate is now going to demonstrate how this looks in a teaching session or a one-to-one appointment to give you a feel for how we are enabling students to develop these skills and literacies in practice.
Thanks, Callum. So the example I'm going to demo here today is from our undergraduate apprentice nursing cohort. This is a group that we offer a lot of support to, especially during their quality improvement systematic review project, which they call the QUIP. This assignment's multifaceted, and it's also undertaken while the group are working on placement. The students are set the task of identifying a real-life improvement need from their workplace and then translating that into an academic question, which they then have to run a scaled-down systematic review on. So I've taken this example topic, which I recently worked with a student on. The topic is, how does the implication of monitoring charts for insulation site rotation in diabetic patients within a hospital setting impact the frequency of injection site complication? So you can see lots of concepts in that particular question. So the first thing that we do when we run a student's research question with them through Scopus AI is to unhide the co-pilot steps drop-down. So the screen that you can see here, we've just run that natural language question through Scopus AI, and then we've unhid the co-pilot steps. So these AI workings in the drop-down, they help us open up discussions around reviewing the question and identifying key concepts. For example, with the topic that I'm using here, Scopus AI has rephrased the question quite considerably. You can see there in the performing natural language search that I've highlighted. It looks quite different to the original question, which is in the bottom in a box. So the bits that it's altered, I've highlighted there. So this rewording gives the students food for thought. We're not saying just take that rewording and roll with it. We're saying, why has it reworded it? Why is it reworded it? Why has it changed the focus? If it's changed the focus, I think the focus in this one has stayed quite similar, but sometimes it slightly changes the focus. And has it stripped out or added concepts? So these students often come with kind of multi-layered concepts and quite detailed original questions, and sometimes Scopus AI helpfully kind of breaks that down for them. It's also provided a generated search string, and that's fantastic for identifying concepts and collecting keywords and synonyms for their search. So this is something we would originally have done with students anyway. Pull out your keywords, key concepts, and draw up a list of synonyms for each, and this helps students with that process. And it's especially useful for this group, as often converting workplace or colloquial language that might appear in their initial question phrasing into academic research terminology can be quite a sticking point for them. It's also nice to have a relevant example of a finished search string to look at together. So as Callum said, we work across disciplines, so we're dipping in and out of lots of different disciplines and subject areas. So being able to work directly with their topic and pull out those concepts and look at a keyword that's specific to their particular question is fantastic. So these AI steps provide a starting point, but we ask the students to critique the terms. Will they want to use all of these terms in their systematic search or not? they'll grab the terms that they want to, and they'll discard the ones that they don't. And we look at the search string format with them as well. For example, you can see here that Scopus AI has put quotation marks around every term. And traditionally, we wouldn't do that. We just put them around phrases. So that's something to discuss with them and let them kind of critique and think about how they will construct a search themselves. And then the next thing we do is have a look at the summary and key findings from the results. And this is great when students have a really broad topic and they're looking to refine it into a research question, because they can look at the subsections and the subtopics. But it's also useful where they've got loads of some sub-concepts already in their original question, and they need to consider which one they're going to focus on and zoom in on. So they can look at these overviews and summaries and kind of make decisions about how they're going to hone and refine their question. And it's this point that students often then rerun their search with an adapted or refocused question. So this stage of reflecting and kind of honing. Because the summaries provide in-text links out to the papers that the results draw from, when the students do find a subtopic of interest, they can link out to some of those papers and read the abstracts and collect more keywords. So it's a bit like a little kind of keyword treasure trail for them. And the concept map tool that we've pulled out on the screen here also helps to give a footing in the topic, especially for visual learners. It's a nice way to kind of connect those concepts and see how they fit together. So all of these stages build the confidence needed to get started with an academic search. The students get to see what some of these processes look like in relation to their search topic before they even have a go themselves. And that's really useful for this group because it's the first time they will have done a systematic search in this way. So it's just kind of an overview for them. And then, as Callum mentioned earlier, Scopus AI is also a great place to talk about using critical thinking skills in relation to AI. So when we're talking about critical thinking with this AI tool, firstly, we discuss the data bank of the tool being used and the transparency of its results. In the way that Callum covered earlier, you can see I've reused the little kind of spectrum here. And this is something that we ask students to consider whatever AI tool they're using. So whether it's a large GPT tool or a closed tool like this. Where does it sit on this spectrum in terms of the size of the data bank and so on? So obviously Scopus AI has the benefits of being a closed and fairly transparent AI environment. However, we can still pull out some useful points for critical thinking and analysis. For example, the co-pilot steps show keyword search strings, but there is some filtering and exclusion criteria applied to the search results that isn't made clear. For example, in the search that I demoed here today, Scopus AI offers 8 results, but when you search the same search string in the front end of Scopus using the kind of all fields option, it brings back 425 documents. So it's obviously just surfacing the results that it thinks are the most critical or the most crucially linked to the topic. Secondly, because we can't see or control those filters and exclusions that it's applied, we can't document or replicate those, and we can't also say that we own those decisions. So it wouldn't be appropriate for a systematic search, for example. Then, although there is the option to reprompt with Scopus AI, reprompting with this tool sometimes produces results that lack some of the original context. So it lets us talk about prompting skills with the students and having a go at applying more general prompts or more specific prompts and seeing what the difference is there in what the responses are. And finally, Scopus is just one database of papers, and Scopus AI only searches from 2003 onwards. So it's pulling information back from a subset of the Scopus database. But for a truly systematic search, the students will need to search multiple databases or pots of paper. So that's something that we just make them aware of. So after the students have prepared their topic and their search using Scopus AI, we ask them to take those key concepts and their bank of synonyms into the advanced feature of our library discovery tool to begin their systematic search. So they transpose their keywords into the boxes in the screen here. And we suggest they use one box per concept. and then they connect the terms using Boolean operators so that they can build their own search string. They run the search and then they edit and refine it until they're happy with the results, making sure to record and document as they go. So this interface searches across multiple databases, including Scopus, and offers them more control over their search. It allows them to edit their search terms and apply filters and exclusion criteria of their own. And it means that they can own their own process and they can document that so that it's reproducible. If you were interested in just the Scopus dataset, you could apply this same methodology in the front end of Scopus. So the front end of Scopus has an advanced search, much like this, with the boxes. So you can pull out those concepts and build your own search. I'll hand back to Callum now to summarize.
Thanks, Kate. So in summary, we hope what we've demonstrated in a short space of time is that Scopus AI for us is a really fantastic tool to enhance and augment the planning and what we would call the pre-search phase of an academic research process. But crucially, what we've aim to demonstrate is that AI doesn't replace the researcher and their controlled academic search process. It enhances that. So it gives them an opportunity to spark ideas, think about early considerations, encourage critical thinking and criticality around what it means to build a comprehensive search string, and allows them to do that in a data set which has a larger amount of control and regulation. So it's a great tool that we really enjoy using, as do our students. It's something we've rolled out in our new teaching sessions this year, and we're already seeing a positive impact on students engaging with AI responsibly and considering what it means for their own search process and their own identity as a researcher. So it's now time for us to hand back over. Hopefully we've kept to time. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and your questions later at the end of the session, and our email addresses are attached if you want to reach out and connect with us to have more conversations in the future. Hand back over to you, Georgios.
Thank you so much, Kate and Callum. What a great presentation and fantastic insights on how to use really responsibly and always with some critical thinking one of the engines that is out there, Scopus AI. Please don't forget to put any questions you have in your Q&A, and let's now proceed to our next amazing speaker for the day. We have the pleasure of having Elisenda Cora. Ellie, welcome to the stage. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Georgios, and thank you, Kate and Callum, for your really interesting presentation. As had been said in the introduction session, I'm a researcher at Universitat Pompeu Fabra. So today I'll be speaking about Scopus AI and mainly its featured deep research in my own experience. So I hope I can bring some insight on that. So I think one of the main or the most important characteristics in our sector is that science is a cumulative process. We're building on previous research constantly. So that sometimes can be a bit difficult, especially for early career researchers. The first time we hear about literature reviews or theoretical frameworks, approaches, and methods, keywords in academic databases, but also experienced researchers that are maybe commencing new projects that are interdisciplinary or that are trying to find research impacts in some fields that are maybe not so much familiarized in a daily basis. So I think that can be a little bit overwhelming, and this can be a little bit the reflection of how we may feel sometimes, especially when we're beginning these projects. And I think AI tools, as the ones we are talking about today, can help us feel a little bit more comfortable in this environment. And I'll try to show how for me. So I'll briefly show, do a little demo on deep research, just to guide you with its main features. I'll quickly share my screen. Okay, so I'll be using two examples. I've already undertaken these searches just because I didn't want to consume too much time during my presentation. And I've used two different types of questions. With deep research, we can use open questions, or we can use very specific questions. We can use filters as well in our prompts. We can refer to different domains, different countries, for instance, or different time spans. But here I've used some easy prompts just to show maybe for someone that's starting a research in a new field that maybe they don't know that well, how this tool can help us, right? So in this case, I asked Deep Research to provide a detailed overview on minority languages in academic publishing and scholarly communication. The first thing we notice is that the tool takes only around a minute and a half in this case to provide an answer. If we click this link here, we can see the reasoning, the thinking details, which is quite similar to what Callum and Kate were talking about, Copilot. It works in a different way, but at least it's being transparent on the way it's retrieving all this information for us. After this, we see that the tool provides us a report. It looks like a report that we can actually download as a PDF, and we can later on interact with it more deeply. And I think something that's interesting about it is that the whole format of this document resembles a lot research papers. So most of the structure and the content are similar to the IMRAD section, also introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. It's quite similar. So in a way, it's familiar for us researchers, right? And at the beginning, it always has like a short statement on what we're asking. References are always linked to the different statements, and by selecting each one of these references, we can access the document, we can access the author profiles, we can access the journal profile or the source profile in case it's a book or something else. We can have a look at the profile of the whole document, we can read the abstract, and we can export the reference. This is also available in the traditional Scopus AI tool, so I think it's quite useful. After that, we get an initial basic coordinates of what the response to our query is. So we get a first answer, we get a scope, we get the disciplines that are related to our question, the methods that are being used in these studies, and some few assumptions and limitations. Of course, this will vary depending on the type of prompt we've created, but in most cases, we get something similar to this. After that, we get some suggestions for further research. And from here, we would say that we enter the main sections of the report. We always start with an introduction. Again, everything is connected to the different references. In my case, because I was asking for an overview, the tool is providing me a scope. It's providing me the main theoretical frameworks and approaches. And something that's also quite interesting is that at the end of each section, we get a short synthesis of what has been said, which I think is also very useful. In this case, then the next section is providing information on the methods and data transparency. Another section is talking about critical analysis of findings. So in a very structured way and easy to follow way, we're getting insights from different components of the research, right? So it's helping us to get a broad view of the research problem we have. And of course, as I said, depending on our query, the report will be more or less long. It will have different sections, but it's always structured. It's always, like I said, all the different references are connected to the different sections. And something that's really, really interesting for me compared to the other features of Scopus AI, the sections referring to gaps and opportunities, further research. I think that's really cool. And it's connected to what Callum and Kate were saying about sparking, new ideas and sparking our critical thinking, maybe finding new research opportunities, which is something really important for us in academia, right? Finding new research gaps and new ways of approaching different problems. So in this case, it's also providing me some information on real world implications, which is something that's also very important for us researchers, how to transfer this to the real world. So yes, as I said, it's mainly a very structured report in a way that's very familiar for us. I think the information is very easy to digest because it's very structured. At the end of the report, we can access all the different references in the list, and again, we can select each one of them and have a look at the different information. Another example, just to show you how answers might be shown in different ways, here I was asking the tool if it could provide an approach to sustainable place branding over the years and what the current state of the art is. So here we can see that the tool also works with figures similar to what Callum was showing with the concept map, the map of concepts. So here the tool is providing a table, which is also, it helps us digest a little bit more this information, and it can be easy for us to understand in a really short session how this domain is structured. But again, we get the first statement, the first introduction, this initial component providing information on the scope, the disciplines, the methods, assumptions. So again, it's setting like the directions of what we've asked the tool, and then we would simply just navigate again all the different sections. As you can see, they are different to the ones I was showing before. So in this case, the titles are different. It's not so much about methods or theoretical framework. It's talking about the evolution and maybe the different approaches to this discipline, how it's been integrated to sustainability and different approaches to engagement with different stakeholders. So all in all, I think it's a very good complement to Scopus AI, to other Scopus AI features. I'm going to stop sharing now my screen. I'll go back to my presentation. Like I was saying, I think it's a very good complement because it provides a broad view. I think maybe the traditional Scopus AI tool was more specific, and in this way we can get a larger image of what we're asking the tool. This is a diagram we produced after testing Scopus AI, the beta version. Now, obviously, it's evolved and it's an improved version, but this was based on the initial version, and we found that most of Scopus AI features could meet most of our research needs, right? So a single feature could address different needs, and at the same time, one need could be met by different features. And I think that deep research can provide or assist in a different feature that we hadn't identified previously, which is inform future research, right? Thanks to these sections related to gaps, opportunities, limitations, research directions, all the sections at the end of the report, but also after reading all of it and digesting all this information, I think that it can support us in finding new ways of approaching different research problems. Something related to the previous presentation as well, is how do we use these tools in a responsible way? How can we integrate them, in our workflow? Together with Dr. Codina, Lopetosa, and Freixo, we designed this process of this evaluation process of integrating different AI tools, and I think Scopus AI and deep research provide a good example just to show how we can evaluate these tools in different parts, beginning with the narrative synthesis, with the responses that they generate. In my case, it was more of a report, structured report. In the case of Callum and Kate, it's more of a long summaries, paragraphs that are more specific about the research question, but we can evaluate if there's articulation, if the different paragraphs are connected, how long they are, if they are including different types of information, which we can say that they do. They use diagrams, they use tables, paragraphs are linked. They are the different sections that help us understand all this information that's being provided. The way that the sources are presented, they're integrated in each of the sections, so it helps us understand where this information is coming from. At the same time, we can export these references. That's something I think very, very valuable, and that other AI tools sometimes don't provide, or the process might be a little bit more difficult. Suggesting prompts. In the case of deep research, the user is the one that needs to actually ask an extra question if we want more information on that. In the Scopus AI version, the tool actually recommends some follow-up questions. So depending on our research needs and what kind of information we want to find, we might use one or the other feature. And then specific functions related to the tool. In my case, then maybe this report structure and the fact that we can download the different sections it provides would be something specific about it. but compared to Scopus AI, then in that case, we could talk about the map of concepts and the summary or the expanded summary. So Scopus AI does really provide some very specific features or exclusive functions that we don't find in other tools. And yeah, just moving on to the end of my presentation, which process can we follow to include these AI tools in our workflow? The first phase would be preparation. So obviously we need to identify what our objective is. We need to invest some time in prompting. I think Kate provided a very good example of a good prompt, right? So in my case, it was just something very broad, but depending on our need, we will need to invest some time in putting up a very accurate prompt, because that will determine our results. Depending on our need, again, we might use one AI tool or a different one, more than one, maybe none, maybe we don't need it. I don't know. There's different ways to approach research. It's always important to evaluate the output. Okay, so we need to analyze if there might be any bias there, the information is correct. So like Callum was saying, these tools are not meant to replace our own work, but to support us and guide us in the process. So we still need to evaluate the result. We need to verify the sources, which I think in the environment of Scopus, it's very easy. We already know that these sources have been verified before. They come from peer-reviewed journals. And it's very easy for us to make sure that this information is actually coming from the sources, because every source is linked to each sentence and we can access them very quickly, so we can check that the sources are true and there's no possible mistakes over there. Of course, if we're using information that has knowledge provided by other people, we need to cite these authors. There needs to be this attribution. And obviously, all this information generated by AI tools should not be used just simply as an output, but we should edit it. No, we should think about it, critically think about it, and then provide our own knowledge from that. And again, transparency and traceability. We can always, take some screenshots, explain which prompts we used, what responses we obtained, and with Scopus AI, again, that the output that's generated by this tool in a form of a report, or just by copying the answer generated, we can show that our research is based on that, but there is actual research. We have not just copied the information, but that has served us to spark our own ideas, our own ways to approaching the research, and then we can show the actual result. So just a few takeaways. I would say that deep research and Scopus AI as a whole are a way of supporting our research, and in many cases accelerating these processes. By using natural language, it can help us, and filters as well in the prompts, can help us tailor our research needs. And I think that the case with deep research is showing a way of providing a guided report synthesis of a research problem that we might have. So with that, I concluded my presentation. I hope that this has been interesting, and I'll hand on over to Georgios. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellie. What a great presentation and great insights there on how the deep research reporting of Scopus can be used, and also other features of Scopus AI can map to the researcher journey. Feel free to continue putting your questions in the Q&A. Let's proceed with our next speaker for today, Dr. Jussi Koivumäki, who is going to walk us through the next presentation. Jussi, welcome. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Georgios. I will just go to the full screen mode so that I see the slides a bit bigger. Yes, thank you. So hello, everyone participating in the webinar on my behalf as well. Welcome to the session. So I work as a university lecturer at the Tampere University at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Technology. I included here one slide also as a brief introduction before going to my sort of a profile as a Scopus AI user, and then ending with a couple of use cases where I have so far found the tool useful in my daily work. So I will just briefly mention this so you know where my thoughts are coming from. I have a background and education in biophysics. After about a decade of focusing mostly on research, I started to work as a university lecturer in biomedical engineering at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Technology at Tampere University a little less than 5 years ago. My current work role is sort of a 50-50, teaching and research. I highlighted here a couple of example courses that I'm responsible for. There's one bachelor level course, Biomedical Engineering Principles, and 2 master's level courses. And of course, there can be also doctoral trainees taking these courses, measurements in physiological systems and modeling of physiological systems. And to some extent, or like partially, it links to my research, which I would summarize very briefly as being involved in cardiac systems physiology. So I employ computational electrochemomechanical models to study the function of cardiac muscle cells and tissue, trying to understand the biomechanics and the electrophysiology of those cells and tissues. Then about my profile as a Scopus AI user. Initially, when I was contacted with this topic, or somebody from our library was asking that this is somebody who could share their thoughts on using Scopus AI, I think I listed these sort of 3 themes, like how I have used the tool in teaching, supervision, and research. But for the sake of this short presentation, I will focus on teaching and supervision, as I would say that I haven't been using it so heavily in my research. So for these 2 themes, I actually have some like thoughts maybe to share. And I wouldn't yet categorize myself as a daily user of Scopus AI, so maybe like a weekly user would be the correct description for my Scopus AI use. Then to the use cases. So as I mentioned, I teach both bachelor's level courses and master's level courses. I would maybe sort of simplify my view so that for the bachelor level teaching, there's, as I would assume that's quite maybe a common thing for many fields, that for the bachelor level courses, there are applicable books available that can be used as course material, like a sort of a course book. So that's quite maybe a common situation. I don't know how common it is in the master's level, but at least in our field, we go to more like timely topics that are maybe a step or 2 closer to the biomedical engineering applications. So for these topics and themes, it's not so straightforward to find applicable, useful course books or course materials. So I would for sure sort of summarize that Scopus AI has been a handy aid for like incrementally updating the lecture materials and also exploring the latest developments in certain subtopics that the students bring forth in the Q&A sessions that we implement in some of our master's level courses. So maybe then going one step further to, in the level of concreteness. So, for example, this, as I mentioned, I have 2 master's level courses that I'm responsible for. One of them is this measurements of physiological systems. It has a fairly wide scope of topics. I listed here some of them, just to highlight the ones that I'm responsible for. I'm sharing the course responsibility with another university lecturer, and he has his own selection of topics. So for me, these first three that are heart related, the blood pressure, chronocardiography, and hemodynamics, as they are related to the function of the heart and the physiology of the heart. That's sort of a, I would say, in the ballpark of my own research expertise, at least to some extent. Whereas these the bottom half of the topics, I would sort of say that I'm familiar with the foundation, but the recent developments, I'm not sort of up to date. So I would say that I'm sort of updating my knowledge on demand basis, and for this purpose, Scopus AI has turned out to be a nice tool for these kind of search and summarize tasks. Then another sort of a line of work or segment of my work where I have found Scopus AI useful is drafting bachelor's thesis topics. At least in our field, you can sort of approach these in two ways. The basic sort of how you set up the bachelor's thesis. So because it's still sort of a relatively it's not so extensive as a master's thesis, so it can be a topic that you are sort of not up-to-date expert, so you can have these kind of bachelor's thesis topics assigned where you are sort of giving a student a topic that you would like to know the most recent developments, and then sort of extend your current understanding a bit together with the student. So for sure, these kind of assignments, or like how to define the topic exactly, exploring the possibilities. So the Scopus AI tool has been useful for that. So exploring the literature, getting a sort of a handle on whether this kind of initial design of the, or this initial specification of the topic, whether that is actually sort of relevant, and how the student could progress with that. Or then from the sort of other perspective, that if a student has been working on their thesis topic already for a while, and when there's sort of a useful or reasonable halfway point, so to speak, it can be helpful with doing this kind of a revisiting of the literature with Scopus AI. At least I have found this useful in a couple of cases, that you can sort of probe a bit the width and depth of the literature review that the student has done. Thank you for your attention, and I guess we can now check out if there are some questions in the Q&A or in the chat.
Thank you so much, Jussi. Really great presentation there, and thank you for sharing these insights on how the tool has been performing and is useful in the different stages and the different tasks of bachelor's and master's student topics. We have just enough time for a few questions indeed, and I think I would like to kick it off maybe with one of the questions by Lily Keane in the chat. So Lily states, some of the articles listed by Scopus may be of poor quality. Students do not necessarily notice that. How do you suggest dealing with it? Would this be a question that I could maybe redirect to you, Callum and Kate, maybe to give us a first hint?
Yes, of course. Kate, do you want to go first?
I think with the process that we're using, with kind of Scopus AI almost being a little scratch pad or a place to have a little look and understand the research process, it's almost something that you can use to your advantage in that you could work with a student group, and as long as they're getting some training before they go into the tool, ask them to navigate and have a look at some of the things that they should be kind of critically assessing, and ask them to go into those papers and read the abstract and see if it is something that is actually relevant to them and what the quality of the paper seems like to them, and it's a nice space for them to develop some of those critical thinking skills with a small set of papers for them to compare and contrast. And then once they've got those skills, then they've got the footing to go off and use them in other environments as well. Does that sound fair, Callum?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add is that in our role, we work with a range of other stakeholders that are responsible for student learning development and enhancement. So we're part of a wider division with learning enhancement who support students to understand conventions of academic writing and what good academic writing looks like, how to read critically and appraise critical literature. So we've been taking a multifaceted approach this year, where we've been working with our learning enhancement team partners, and we've been, I think, developing a much more embedded set of sessions with students where they take Scopus AI, they understand the conventions of the search process, they critique the search strings, and then they also get support from colleagues who can help them with critical appraisal of reading, and that helps link in really nicely to becoming AI literate and digitally literate when considering the terminology that is pulled out from Scopus AI. So it's a multifaceted approach that we take with other colleagues in our department here, and I would encourage that collaborative partnership working in other colleagues' institutions if they have a similar sort of setup.
Thank you so much, Callum and Kate. Really comprehensive answer. I think we have another question here by Daniel Esser. Maybe this one is for you, Ellie. The question is about how robust or accurate is the deep learning tool. For example, can we take the answers at face value, or does it sometimes get it wrong? And I know you had a very good slide there about the evaluation, Ellie.
Yes, I think that it would be a mistake to assume that AI tools are always right. So I'm not saying that we always need to be thinking that they're wrong, but we need to be alert because there might be some mistakes. So I think information tends to be quite accurate, but it's our job to evaluate this information. From my experience, I would say most of the time the information is accurate, but of course, with Scopus AI and any other AI tool, mistakes can happen, and it's our job as researchers to make sure we evaluate the content by accessing these references and making sure that the information that has been stated there matches not what we're reading and our critical thinking. So I think I don't know if I answered the question properly, but I think it would be, for me, the headline would be, it's a mistake to assume that mistakes cannot happen.
You're absolutely right, Ellie. Thank you so much for this. And then there are many questions coming in, but I think we have time for only one more. Maybe this one for Jussi by Frida Rosengren. Jussi, they are asking, have you ever come across hallucinations when using Scopus AI? If so, how do you deal with them, and how do you tell your students to deal with them?
Yeah, sure, I can comment on that. So I'm also responsible for the bachelor's thesis seminar, which is the umbrella under which the students do their bachelor thesis, and there I try to emphasize that even though this is of course one step further in trustworthiness, the Scopus AI, that they of course need to check the references, that what the summarizes or whatever text that the Scopus AI has produced for them, that they have to check that the references are actually giving that information that is used for the citation. And maybe from my own perspective, when I've used the tool for example, updating my lecture materials, or like answering the Q&A questions from the students. So of course, having a bit more experience in research, maybe it's quicker to sort of see if some reference in the summary the Scopus AI is actually not providing the information that you were searching for, that bit of a statement or like so for sure you have to be critical. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jussi. Really comprehensive detail there. With that, I think we have actually arrived at the end of our webinar. I would definitely like to thank, first of all, our amazing speakers, Callum, Kate, Ellie, Jussi. What an amazing job there you did, and great presentations. And of course, our great audience. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining from wherever you joined, your morning, afternoon, or evening. And I'm hoping you had a really great session and there was some important information for you there. Thank you for joining and have a great remaining of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.